All right. So what we want to be able to track is our blood sugar levels. I learned this at the hypnotherapy school that I went to in Los Angeles area. And what they found was this was many years ago, but at that time they had over 30 or 35 years of tracking their clients, and they worked with a group of nurses who were very reliable for mapping things out, like diet and lifestyle and stuff like that. They have a certain discipline, right, for writing things. They know how much their patients, what food they're getting, and what medication, so they're reliable for that, and they were chosen specifically. In a test group of over 100,000 people over a 30, 35-year period, 100% of the people, they found that in 100% of the people, it was always the same. So everybody wakes up at a baseline blood sugar level because you haven't eaten in 8, 10 hours, 12 hours or something. Okay. Now, if you eat a balanced diet, and a balanced diet means that first, you understand that your stomach is the size of 2 of your fists. It's the actual, on average, approximately. Right? So if you eat more than a bowl of food, you're overstuffing your stomach. And you're on empty, your stomach's empty because you haven't eaten since the night before. So the first thing is, eat to 3/4. Don't overfill your stomach. Okay, so you eat to 3/4 full, which means a little less than just a small bowl of food. And you eat something that is rich in proteins, rich in fats, and rich in carbohydrates. So I would start with something which is like about 30-40% fats, 30-40% carbs, and about 30%, 20 to 30% fats. Right? So proteins, carbs, and fats. Right? And you start wherever feels right to you. For me, an egg, 1 egg, a little bit of hash brown potatoes or a whole grain bread, maybe a little bit of fruit, a little yogurt. That gives me a little bit of everything. Right? It takes about 15 minutes for food to start absorbing into your body. The sugars that you eat, the fruits, the juices, the simple carbs will go into your blood within minutes. And then your complex carbs that you digest by chewing properly, the potato, the bread, the rice, the noodle, whatever. Here in Thailand, it's rice. In America, it might be cereals. In other parts of the world, it'll be breads or potatoes, right? Will, in the 15 to 20, 30 minutes, will start to digest and go into your blood. And then the proteins the amino acids will also boost your blood sugar levels, but in a very smooth, prolonged way. They're slower. They take a couple hours. And then your fats give you something as well, right? If you eat a balanced diet, where you fill your stomach to 3/4 with fats, proteins, and carbs, you will have a curve that will, within 3 hours, from moderate activity, if you're running a marathon, it'll be different. Within 3 hours, you will go back down to your baseline blood sugar levels. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, now somewhere between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours, your blood sugar level is going to start to go down. Right? You didn't overeat, you just reached a certain level that works optimal for you. Right? So, if at around 2 hours, I create a steady peak level, so this is low, and this is peak. I can identify what my peak level of blood sugar levels are. Now, if I was a jet airplane, that would be my fuel pump is working perfectly and it's providing the exact amount of fuel that I need for my engines to fly and to keep me cruising altitude. This is valuable to know because you will function, your nervous system, your entire body will function at peak performance when it's at peak levels that are maintained steadily throughout the day. All right. So what was discovered is that if you eat a diet that isn't balanced, let's say it's rich in sugars, you just eat fruits or cereals, you have your coffee with a donut, and I'm nothing against eating coffee with a donut if you're also eating it with an egg and with a salad, But if you just eat sugars or foods that are out of balance, then you're going to have rougher type of experiences. Your blood levels will peak. They might actually go too high, and then they'll crash. And each time they're accelerating too fast up or too fast down, your body goes into shock, stress, and you go into a hypnotic state. Your mind stops functioning properly. You're now in emergency mode. Fears, anxieties, and stresses will come up. If on top of that you're dehydrated, you're not breathing properly, and you just got into an argument or a fight with your boss, your partner, your child, your mother, your father, your wife, your husband, whatever, you are now completely, well, you're not, let's say you're not functioning at 100% anymore. You're functioning probably at less than 1%. Right? Does that make sense? So there's something to be said about knowing what your blood sugar levels are so that you can perform accordingly to the situation that you require, depending on your level of activity. Are you just going to stay home and read books and take care of things? Are you going to be running around the garden? Are you going to be climbing a mountain? Do you have a meeting with a potential multi-million-dollar client, or there's lawyers because there's a lawsuit, or whatever the situation is? Your capacity to stay at peak blood sugar levels is to your advantage. And as soon as your blood sugar levels, as soon as your fuel pump isn't working properly, how are you going to stay afloat? Are you going to stay at cruising speed? If you're a Formula One race car and your fuel injectors are clogged or deficient, or you don't have enough fuel in your tank, how are you going to win the race? How are you going to really function at peak performance if you're not eating properly? If you're not breathing properly? If you're not hydrating properly? And I can't tell you what your peak breath, hydration, and nutrition requirements are, but I can tell you as an absolute fact that you will function at peak performance when you dial that in, and you will function at less than peak performance when you're not there. Can I state that as a factual statement? Would there be any argument with that?
No.
I don't know what this plant or that plant needs, but it does need a certain amount of sun, a certain amount of water, a certain temperature range, and certain nutrients in the soil for it to grow, flower, and give fruit. Right? Find your conditions. The quicker you find that, you can know how to maintain yourself and thrive and stay intuitive. Because you cannot be intuitive when you're in a crash mode. You become instinctive. You lose your awareness. But your instincts are animal level. They're very base level. And they're basic. And they're not as sophisticated. So you're on backup. Emergency backup. Instinctive. Swerve out of the way. Get yourself out of trouble. Cut your losses. Right? Win the situation, but you crawl away, but your instinct saved you. But you were in overwhelm, or you were not functioning at peak capacity because you missed whatever you needed for these critical components. The most critical, which are going to be proper breathing, proper hydration, and proper nutrition. You want to be able to find out what your baseline is. Right? So how do you discover that? Well, the only way you discover that is by practicing it and figuring out what your body needs now. And I can tell you right now, as a 51-year-old body, that my nutritional requirements are different today than when they were when I was 40, when I was 30, when I was 10, when I was 20. Completely changed. And depending on my conditions, my work, my climate, what I'm doing. If I'm staying here, sitting on a beanbag or in a hammock, reading books and playing with my little girl, I need very, very little food. Yeah. If I'm working on a project, I need more. There was a study that was done with professional chess players, and what was discovered is that what level of activity does a chess player have? They sit like this. They move the piece, they hit a timer, and they go back to looking. The average person uses between 2,000 and 3,000 calories a day. They would use 6,000 to 8,000 calories in a match from all that brain power. So let's say that I had a nice breakfast at 8 o'clock. I'm at the office or at work by 9, which means that my blood sugar levels are good until 11 maximum. At 10:30, I'm reaching in for a pack of nuts, a little piece of cheese, an apple. I'm getting a protein smoothie, right? Something with nuts and maybe with coconut. Give me some fats, give me some carbs, give me some proteins, because that will give me a boost. And I already had a full breakfast, which means I ate to 3/4. I didn't overfill myself. Before I'm on empty, when I'm down to a quarter, Then I eat a handful of protein-rich foods. And that bumps me back up for another couple hours. And then a couple hours later, I feel myself going down. I eat another handful, and I keep going. I live in a world where I'm never more than 10 or 15 minutes away from a source of food. There's always a mini mart or a 7-Eleven. I can always find something anywhere.
What would happen if you had your own high energy balls that you're carrying around with you?
That I carry them with me. In my backpack, depending on where I'm going, I'll have little energy balls, protein bars, a pack of nuts. This body happens to love almonds and cashews and little pieces of cheese and apples. It just loves it. It likes a good power bar. It loves raw nut balls. Yeah, that's it. And that's how I maintain myself. So let's say that I get a call. Let's say I'm working in my office, so to speak, right? And it's 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:30, and I get a message from my secretary saying, your big client is outside waiting for you. Okay, right? Or the lawyer needs you to call him immediately. Or I just got a call, your mother's in the hospital. The school called, you have to go to school, your child just broke a leg. I know that I can reach into a bag or a drawer and I can pull out, I can drink water. First take a breath. And I drink a glass of water. And I get a handful of cashew nuts or almonds. I take a Baby Bell cheese that fits in the pocket anywhere. I have an apple or a piece of fruit or dried fruit. And I eat that, rinse my mouth. I am now at peak performance, good to go for the next 2 hours. I can talk to any client about anything. I can go to the hospital and deal with the emergency. I'm not going to rush into that situation without first topping up my fuel tank. It's like you're driving across the desert and you reach the last gas station for the next 300, 200 miles. What do? You check your gas tank to make sure you're not on empty, right? If you just filled up a mile before you're full, you keep going. But if you're anywhere less than half a tank, 3/4 of a tank, you top up because you never know what's coming your way. For me to stay intuitive, peak performance, relaxed, ready to take on whatever, I stay well breathing, well hydrated, and I keep my protein levels, right? Does that make sense? So another exercise that you can do in order to help figure out what that is that first you figure out what you need to eat in order to maintain steady blood sugar levels. You do that by also eating things that will give you blood sugar crashes and spikes. So just eat a bunch of sugar and watch what happens to you one day. How you feel it. Because you should be able to identify the symptoms of an oncoming crash before it happens. Not until you're passed out on the floor or with a headache or with a migraine, but when you begin yourself just here where it's starting to go down, as soon as you are less than peak, you drop below a certain threshold, you can be sensitive to those needs. I can tell you that this body is aware of its nutritional needs within 15 minutes. It takes me 15 minutes. That's why I eat something and I wait 15 minutes from the moment I first started putting food in my mouth till after I'm finished. Even if it's a small salad and it takes me a minute to eat it, I still wait 10-15 minutes before I check the menu to order the next thing. Because it takes that long for the body to start absorbing the nutrients and to already feel. I can already feel the difference within 15 minutes, right? And within 15 minutes of no longer being at peak, I can feel it. Something is slight, maybe you yawn. You find yourself getting a little distracted or a little bit tight, so then check in. What's wrong? Oh, I wasn't breathing properly. I was talking too much. No, there's still something. Oh, maybe I'm dehydrated. So I need some water. That was it. Or, no, something is still wrong. So maybe I grab a bag of nuts. That's it. So what was discovered with 100,000 people over a 35-year period is that 80% of all of their issues, all of their stress, all of their syndromes, all of their anxiety was caused by poor blood sugar management. That's like having an 80% tax continuously. Because how often are you might be more self-conscious and more aware, but none of these people had thought about it or figured it out. So it was a secret within, it was kind of like this little open secret within the hypnotherapy community, was that your client comes in and tells you about all their problems and everything they have. Say, for the first session, right? Okay, so you're going to do some basic hypnotic inductions, help them relax and clear, but then you're going to give them a homework assignment. I want you to keep a little notepad, and I want you to write what you eat for breakfast at what time, how much. Whatever you eat, just serving size and time. And keep track of that next week, and then come back next week, and here, try this meditation. They come back, and you look at, nobody puts any awareness into keeping their blood sugar levels steady. Nobody does. Unless you've learned. If you've learned, then you maintain your blood sugar levels, because why would you sabotage yourself? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I've gone into blood sugar crashes that I've intentionally created for myself because I wanted to experience what it was like. Because what if tomorrow, for some reason, I have no choice, and this is all I have, and I am in a blood sugar crash? How can I make the best of it? If there's no food, then I know that my energy will drop. So just like my phone, it says 20% battery. Would you like to go into low power mode? Yes. So then the background apps start working, right? Everything slows down. Now I can make it to my next charging station. My main focus is on how to keep this body at peak performance. And peak performance means the body is healthy, relaxed, feeling in a state of chronic pleasure. There's no residual aches and pains. Now, I climbed up and down, I twisted an ankle, I've got a slight pain, right? But apart from that, how do you feel? You feel good? I keep that because I can stay there, then I can function at peak performance, and I have, my intuition is like ready, time to go. Right?
Yeah.
The other exercise that can be done is that what I learned to do is to do a series of fasts. And the fasts are there so that you can see how you function at baseline blood sugar levels. We'll give you lots of valuable information. So the recipe for the fast is very simple. You pick a day where you don't have anything to do. So it's a weekend, or you have a day off and nobody's around, it's just you, right? Or you're on holiday somewhere. You have a nice dinner, whatever you want to eat. Doesn't matter what you eat, more or less. Just have a nice dinner, you go to bed, and in the morning when you wake up, you're only going to drink water that day. Just water. You're going to sit and not do much. It's not for climbing a mountain, right? It's just for being relaxed. And it's not for doing lots of work. It's just a day that you take off. And you're not going to eat dinner that night. You're going to go to bed. And the next morning when you wake up, you're not going to rush and have a breakfast. You're going to first relax. And when you're completely relaxed, slept well, take an hour to wake up, and then you go and you have a breakfast. And you monitor, you witness, you stay alert to your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, unconscious fears that come up, insecurities. You write them all down. You also notice how your mind works, and you'll notice that your mind will slow down. And it won't think about things that are unnecessary. It'll reserve power. So you'll go into low power mode. And it's useful to know what your peak performance blood sugar levels are. It's useful to know what your baseline, your low level blood sugar levels are. And it's good to know what happens when you're spiking, because now you have information about this vessel. Remember, this is the vessel that has to navigate through reality and thrive. By reality, I mean existential reality, the actual universe around you, not your projections on top of it. Right? So by learning how to do this, you get to master this. Now, I did this once a week for 8 months. And I started on weekends. And the first time, I had headaches because I didn't have a cup of coffee and I didn't eat, and I was afraid I'd be hungry. I'd never done a fast. I might starve. And then nothing happens. You wake up the next day and you feel great. You feel light and sharp and clear. And you do it again and you do it again. Eventually, I would go to work. And I was teaching in a public secondary school, 7th and 8th grade in South Central LA in the ghetto. And I would get in my car, do it every Monday. And I would drive into school and teach. And Mondays were great because everybody's just kind of burned out on a Monday. So everybody's low level. And I was low level too. People overdid it on the weekend. They've got the Monday blues. They don't want to go into work. And I did this for 8 months. Every week. Every Monday. I learned so much about myself. Apart from that, should there be an accident, should there be whatever situation, a war, an environmental, and there's a scarcity of food, I know, because you can go 2-3 days like this, I know that I have zero energy to waste in fear or anxiety about my immediate food needs. I know I need water and breath. I take care of this body so it stays intuitive, so it knows which way to go at any given time. In an emergency situation or in a higher performance situation, like whatever you're doing, like even like at JT's house or at Tony's events, I still maintain my blood sugar levels. I'm responsible for it. They don't feed you. They keep you, they keep the room too cold. They don't give you enough water. They make you have to go in and out for water. They close the doors. You don't have enough food. I bring in food. I bring in water. I maintain myself. Once I can maintain steady blood sugar levels, mineral levels, hydration levels, like basic elements, oxygen, carbon dioxide, sugars, right? Proteins, amino acids, fats, vitamins. Now I start fine-tuning what does this body need as far as what kind of protein, animal protein, vegetable protein, right? Animal fats, vegetable fats, carbs. Am I thinking a lot? I need a lot more fish and shrimp. Am I doing business deals? I need more beef. That works better. And is it emotional? Is it really like getting into yourself? I need pork. It just works that way. Fat, bacon, pork belly. This body, your body might thrive with a slightly different combination of things. I have no way of knowing. I don't even care. I just know that you can find whatever works for you to function at peak performance and thrive. And by that, it means this body feels good. It's alert. It's alert. It's awake. It's present. This mind is off. These emotions are clear. My past is resolved. Physically, emotionally, psychologically, the past doesn't exist anymore. I'm just present. I have an eye on my target, my vision. I want to get over there, but I'm present as to where I am right here, right now, because the straight line is not the best approach always. Sometimes you've got to go around and follow, and then you arrive. Along the way, you pick up all these little gold nuggets and diamonds and gemstones of value, of wealth, either in information or in actual resources or in contacts and people, whatever it is. I'm relaxed and I'm calm because my engines are running smooth and clear. My processors are idling. I'm just idling. So I can absorb all the information from that super rich, super valuable event that we had at JT's house, for example. Right? I'm at peak performance. Right? Yeah. So those are the first three. Those are critical. And then from there, you want to do things like make sure that you're resting properly, sleeping properly. Your posture, your body's well rested, well exercised, well stretched. Right? In order to sleep properly, I need to know that 60 minutes before falling asleep, 45 to 60 minutes before falling asleep, and 45 to 60 minutes after waking up, I have no critical filters in how my mind works. I'm open and suggestible to whatever is happening. So this is like the windows are open. The mosquitoes can get in, right? There's no screens. There's no filters. So no news, no arguments, no fights, no TV shows or movies with lots of violence just before going to bed or just waking up. Because the flower needs to open, right? The mind needs to the processor needs to turn on. Turn on your phone or your computer for the first time to reboot itself, and it takes some time to come on before it's fully functional. So don't overwhelm yourself with thought processes when your system isn't ready yet and you haven't stretched properly, hydrated properly, eaten properly, breathed properly. You're in a transition from sleep into or out of sleep, right? So that makes it much more efficient, right? And I go to bed before I'm tired. I allow myself to slowly wind down and fall asleep with a clear mind, clear emotions, healthy body that's stretched out, alignment and balance to the bed. I fall asleep like that. And then I wake up and I notice that I'm in some position. And I wake up before my eyes are open. I'm alert. I'm aware in this body. straighten out my body, breath, and my thoughts start to race because of our conditioning to wake up early and go to school. Our nervous system has been primed to start fast, fast, fast. You have a test at 8 o'clock in the morning. You have an interview at 9 in the morning. You got to get up and run. Instead of giving people a chance to wake up naturally, you force yourself. So then I've had to learn how to just stay in bed until I'm completely clear and finished, quiet, relaxed. Then I get up. Now I'm functioning at peak performance because I'm breathing properly, I'm hydrating properly, I'm resting properly, I'm eating properly, I'm keeping my posture in a way that allows me to stay alert, relaxed, not putting unnecessary stress in my body. Those are the basic requirements for a body to have the conditions required to be present in the moment. If the body doesn't have those conditions, then as the conditions are met, your chances of it happening all by itself are higher. If you don't meet the conditions, they're lower. If you poison yourself, it's even lower. Right? This is a fact for everybody. What you specifically need, only you can figure it out. Once you figure out how this unique mechanism, this body has never existed in this form before, it will never exist in this form again. 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it will not even be the same body anymore. It recycles itself every 7 years, whatever the number of years, it doesn't actually matter. But it's not the same body that you were born with. It's changed. It's evolved. It's emerged. It's grown. Right? It's developing. So the entire way, if you put awareness into how to take care of it, it's going to naturally fall into its balanced center all by itself. So if you create a routine for yourself that allows this to happen on a regular basis, that's 80% of the work right there. That's the majority of it. When your body is out of alignment and out of balance, it puts all that extra stress goes onto your mind. It goes onto your nervous system. It adds noise to, it adds distortion. How are you, if you haven't slept well, you haven't eaten well, and then somebody has a problem with you, how do you respond? With the same level of joy and creative capacity to resolve it? When you're tired and stressed and overworked and somebody bothers you? No, right? No. Slap out, right? Snap. So my greatest responsibility first is to make sure that this body has everything it needs in order to just be relaxed, feel good, stay quiet, calm and alert. If I can take care of those physical requirements, now my nervous system is functioning at peak performance. With my nervous system, with my entire being functioning at peak performance, now I can sort out complexities of mind and emotion that are not accessible when you're in pain, physically. And levels of pain, like some people take pride in being able to handle more and more and more and more pain. And there's something to be said about being able to handle intense pain because one day you might be in a situation where you have to handle it. But there's something about being so sensitive that you can avoid pain before it becomes painful.
Yeah.
I consider that a greater skill. Like being able to, naked in the jungles, battle against a wild tiger and get away with it. Raw, I'm the great warrior. But you know what? Being able to sense it miles away and walk around it, and guide my family around it and avoid having to fight it naked, I consider that a greater challenge. Like that's much more interesting to me. And should it sneak up and attack me, of course I need to be able to fight it off. Even if I'm naked, I gotta do whatever I have to do to fight it off, right? But I'm not looking for that battle. I'm actually using my senses to get around it, right? Instead of waiting till my body breaks down and I have to go to a hospital. If I have 3 spots on my body, if I have 3 pimples anywhere on my body, I consider that I'm entering a health crisis. How is it? Because each little spot is millions of bacteria that are eating me right now. One little tiny little cut infection right now. I've got millions of little monsters, little orcs and trolls, little goblins trying to eat me. And I've got 1. Okay, so I keep an eye. I've got 2. I've got 3. I've got 5. Actually, my body's out of balance. Why can't it naturally fight these off? That's the level of sensory acuity I put on. If I'm anywhere less than having a delicious life experience, I'm off. I'm off balance. It's my responsibility to get back into my zone. So I keep myself at my zone, and no amount of anything, money, opportunities, fame, dreams, ambition, fear, will inspire me to compromise that. Because when I'm feeling my best, that's when I'm feeling my best. And I'm the one that gets to live this life moment to moment, and how I feel stacks, it compounds. It keeps getting better, or it keeps getting worse. Right? Does that make sense? So these are the most critical, essential physical components to how to stay at a peak performance that allows you to be present. Existence is a peak performance experience. If you're not at peak performance, you're not going to make it. Humanity is not functioning at peak performance. Humanity is in danger of extinction. Because there's too many of us, and we're just mucking around, and we're wasting everything. Time, energy, resources, polluting the planet, hurting ourselves. It's rare that you find healthy, happy, thriving people on this planet.
Yeah, it's true.
It's rare. But every flower that you see in this garden is healthy and thriving. It's rare to travel through the jungles. I've explored the jungles in Asia. I've been to the bush in Africa. I've explored the jungles in the Amazon. I've seen very few unhealthy, sick animals, unhealthy plants. Anything less than beautiful and graceful in nature is rare. They die.
It's taken out.
It's taken out. And with we humans, the truth is that I see more zombies and robots and unhealthy people now than ever before. I've never come across a population of them. I've seen millions of wildebeests. And I've seen 2 that were sick. One had a big chunk bitten out of its rump, so it wasn't going to last very long. Another one was sick. It was going to die and get eaten. The hyenas were going to get it that night. That's it. Right? All the rest are healthy. You go into a city where there's 1 million humans, and I bet you'll find 999,990 that are unhealthy. You might find one that's really thriving.
Blood sugar. Our blood sugar can be measured out and graphed out in a way to illustrate what the best way to achieve peak performance and what it looks like when we do things like high sugar intake spikes and crashes. So I'll start by explaining the graph. So the first thing I want you to look at is that we're going to measure blood sugar levels, low blood sugar levels to high blood sugar levels. And we're going to color code it such that if your blood sugar level is too low, you're going to be in danger. And if your blood sugar level is too high, you're going to also be in danger. So these are the danger levels in red. Then we're going to have caution zones in orange. Green is going to be our good, as can be seen here on the graph. And our peak performance, we're going to have it as this little narrow band in blue right here. Then this graph also contains time, because when you consume sugar, consume food, the sugar levels will go up as you intake the food and digest it, and then as you metabolize it and use it up, the blood sugar levels go down over time, right? So in this case, we start off at time 0, which is when you wake up. And the reason our first meal is called the breakfast is because we're breaking the fast. We typically have dinner at some point in the evening, and then we, depending on how late we have our dinner and how early we wake up, we have 6, 8, 10, 12 hours of what is a fast for the body. In other words, it's not getting any sugar. So we start off at 0, and we're here at baseline. Now, the ideal way to establish and create a peak performance blood sugar level is that you will eat a protein-rich meal. Now, a small protein-rich meal intake for breakfast will give you a smooth curve going up into peak performance. It'll last about an hour and a half, and then it'll slowly start to taper off like this. A medium size, starting at 0, and baseline blood sugar levels, baseline fasting blood sugar levels, will go up to peak performance, and because you've eaten a medium-sized meal, it'll extend longer. And a large protein-rich meal will give you a nice long curve that'll last a couple of hours. You can guarantee 2 hours of peak performance blood sugar levels with a large protein-rich meal intake, right? So this is what we're looking for. And of course, it depends on the situation. If you just need a half an hour or 2 hours of blood sugar, you eat accordingly. Now, what I want to illustrate in this graph as well is what a high sugar intake spike crash looks like. So you wake up, you eat something sweet, you drink a soda, a cola, a coffee, your blood sugar, because it's just pure sugar, spikes right up, gets to a point where you might even get a little dizzy, you might even get a little headache, and you could eventually pass out. If you had a high enough blood sugar intake, you could actually pass out. And then insulin will kick in, and that blood sugar will be drawn out of your blood so rapidly that you will have a crash. And then slowly back up again to baseline. And this is something that we want to avoid. So what we're looking for is figuring out what our thinking, feeling bodies need in order to function at peak performance. So we wake up and we eat a protein-rich protein-rich meal, and whether it's a snack or a medium-sized or a larger size will then give us a pretty much guaranteed peak performance window where our brain, our entire body, as far as fuel is concerned, is functioning at peak performance. Okay, so now this graph shows us what we need to do in order to attain to sustainable peak performance blood sugar levels, right? So as we saw in the graph before, if we take a small to medium-sized intake of protein-rich foods, our blood sugar levels go up smoothly, they last for a certain amount of time, and then they start to come down. Now, if we can anticipate, if we can learn how to train ourselves to pay attention to when our blood sugar level is going to start to go down, what we can do is, while the blood sugar is still at peak and it's 15, 20 minutes away from going down, so about 15 minutes before you're going to drop before peak performance, what you do is you then take another handful, a small amount, of protein-rich snacks or meals. So then the blood sugar level will come up and prevent it from coming down. We repeat this every 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours as our activity levels require. And this way we can attain to a nice smooth blood sugar that can last all day. You can stay at peak performance for the entire duration of your day. Sometimes I do it for 16 hours a day. I start with a medium-sized breakfast. That might include a soft-boiled egg, yogurt, granola, juices. I can enjoy a coffee or a tea at this point. There's no problem in intaking a little bit of caffeine if that's something that you enjoy or it helps you with your mental performance. And that brings my blood sugar levels up. So let's say I had breakfast at 8 in the morning. Well, a couple hours later, an hour and a half later, I know that if I want to keep going, I'm going to take a small amount. So then I can eat a handful of nuts, almonds, a piece of cheese, an apple, a little bit of meat, protein, a chicken satay if you're in a place like I am in Thailand, a little bit of ham, anything that you like that's rich in proteins, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, meat, up to you. It doesn't really make a difference. All that matters is that we're providing the body what it needs in order to be able to maintain steady blood sugar levels. And here is what it could look like over an entire full day of peak performance, where you have a good-sized breakfast, and then you have a snack, protein-rich snack, and then you have a lunch, followed by 1 or 2 snacks, followed by a dinner, and if you need to keep working, a bit of a snack, and then drop back off at night so that you wake up the next day at baseline blood sugar levels. It's really that simple. All that you need to do is just tune into yourself. And how do you do it? Well, you just experiment with different foods and you figure out which foods help you do what as far as your blood sugar performances and also how you feel. Because if I'm going to be sitting at a desk all day and I want peak performance blood sugars, it's different than if I'm running a marathon and I want peak performance blood sugar levels, right? And this is something I can only figure out by studying myself. So this is an experiment for you to do on yourself as a subjective scientist as to what you, the unique individual thinking, feeling body needs under different environments and different situations in order to achieve peak performance blood sugar levels. And the thing about peak performance blood sugar levels is that they guarantee that my entire thinking process and my body is going to be, that part's going to be working. Just like I want to guarantee that the fuel quality and the fuel pump in a vessel, like for example, the airplane that I'm in, that needs to have the peak performance fuel consumption. Otherwise I'm in danger. So this is the approach that I take, and you can do this by studying yourself and figuring out how to do it. All right, so now I'd like to give you an example of a typical blood sugar curve for most people, where we start off at baseline as everyone else. We have a breakfast which may have some protein in it, but it's mostly sugary, and our blood sugar drops. And within a couple of hours, we're feeling tired. So we go and we get ourselves a coffee with cream and sugar, or a soda, a carbonated soda with sugar and caffeine in it, or we eat a bunch of sugary snacks, and we have a blood sugar spike, which then makes us, kinds of knocks us out. And then we sort of recover from that, and then we go for a lunch, but the lunch, once again, we're not paying attention to our protein intake. We're not paying attention to what's happening to our blood sugar with the quality of the foods that we're eating, so then it spikes, and this is how we can continue our day. And well, your performance is going to be hindered. You're going to have moments of anxiety, stress, overwhelm, memory loss, confusion, forgetfulness of what you're doing, where you're at, need to get up and go to the water cooler, or somebody will go out and smoke a cigarette or do something because we're not fueling ourselves properly. So how is our performance going to match what we need in order to thrive? So once again, it's important for you to pay attention and experiment. Try eating the way that I'm inviting you to eat to see how it does, and then eat the way that you normally eat and feel the difference, because ultimately it's about what you feel. Because you're the one you're the vehicle. The body is the vehicle. It's the vessel that needs to perform in the world, and the outcome of the quality of your performance is going to have something to do with the quality of how you treat and, in this case, fuel your vehicle for performance. Okay, now this is a blood sugar graph of a full day of blood sugar spikes, and it's self-explanatory. And we, as kids, we do this. We just eat a bunch of sugar, and then we run around like crazy, and then we pass out. Then we get up, we eat a bunch of sugar, run around like crazy, and pass out. And if you do this once or twice, every once in a while, it's not that big of a deal. But if you have a lifetime habit of this, this is a direct invitation. It's the perfect recipe for problems like diabetes and high blood pressure and kidney problems, and having a really low quality life, because how are you going to perform? How are you going to make it? So this is something for you to experiment with, and more than anything, just really pay attention to what you're doing to your body, what you're putting into it, because it does have a direct effect. And people who study this discover that 80-90% of all of their fears, problems, insecurities, anxieties, stress, overwhelm can be cleared by simply establishing nice, smooth peak performance blood sugar levels so that you can have a nice peak performance day. All right, in this final graph about blood sugar levels, I'd like to address the following condition. One is what happens when you have a high-fat, high-protein, low-sugar diet, like a keto diet. What you do when you're fasting. What happens when you're fasting, and some people do prolonged fasts. And obviously while you're sleeping. So when we're sleeping and when we're doing low sugar and fasts, we're staying here at baseline. Now, what's interesting about staying at baseline is that the most important thing is that you're maintaining a nice, smooth baseline level. This allows you to perform. There's things that you can figure out at baseline level that you cannot figure out at peak performance. And there's things that you can figure out and do at peak performance very well that you can't do very well at baseline. So there is an advantage to doing keto diets and to doing fasts, because they are perfect examples of how to maintain steady blood sugar levels and the advantages of it. So in certain deep meditation practices, you will do a fast for 24, 30, 48, 50 hours, up to 72 hours. And during that time period, your mind will be very, very clear and sharp because the low, steady blood sugar levels prevents all sorts of random thoughts that would be spiking up in your thoughts. So it's of value to do occasional fasts, once a week, once a month, where you just wake up, you have a glass of water, and you eat nothing that whole day except stay hydrated, and then you go to bed. And during that time period, you'll notice that you can read, you can write, you can figure things out. Obviously, this is not the day to go out and dig a hole in your backyard and carry bags of cement and try to run a marathon. But it's a day to go in and explore fears, anxieties, negative emotions, so-called negative emotions, because they won't have a lot of fuel to act up. So maintaining steady blood sugar levels, either at baseline, at good, or at peak performance, there's something to be said about learning how to do that. And once again, you're a unique individual thinking, feeling body with a metabolism that today is what it is and tomorrow will change. And depending on the conditions, if it's hot and cold, hot or cold, like you're in a snowy place, you're going to eat differently than if you're in the tropics, right? So what the point of these graphs, what I'm inviting you to do is to explore, as a scientist, on yourself, eating healthy foods, the advantages of steady blood sugar levels at baseline, of peak performance steady blood sugar levels that I've shown in the previous graphs, and of course what happens when you have a spike.